Welcome to our Wednesday evening Bible study. Tonight we're looking at Proverbs chapters 10 through 29. And so we obviously won't be able to look at these 20 chapters in depth. We're going to look at a few themes. And actually tonight I would like to start with just a reminder of the first verses, but also a theme that is found throughout Proverbs, and that is the fear of the Lord. So just in terms of orienting us to that, like what is the fear of the Lord? I found a quotation from a theologian, and his name is von Rad. He's a theologian of the 20th century, and this is his especially an Old Testament scholar. He says, to fear Yahweh means to orient one's whole life, thought, desire, action, speech, and measure of value around the designs and orders of the God who created the world, who redeemed Israel, who gave them the law, and who is redeeming them from their corruption and sin. What it means to live life in the fear of Yahweh cannot be answered in any simple way. The whole book of 915 sayings is oriented to that task. And if we understand that the fear of the Lord is actually acting out of the fear of the Lord, in the fear of the Lord, through the fear of the Lord, and so on, that's what wisdom is all about. Learning to live in God's world, His way, learning to live it with Him in all areas of life. And so I think, Jesus had that down when He said, He has come to glorify the Father. That's His whole purpose in life. That would be another way of saying He walks in the fear of the Lord. So I thought it would be a good idea to explore the idea of a wise person. One reason in the New Testament, it's also important. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to, after we do the wisdom literature, we go through Proverbs, and we'll do Ecclesiastes next. And then we'll look at Song of Solomon, and then we're going to go into James. Now, James, of course, early on, James is the most proverbial. It has the most wisdom kind of language in the New Testament. There is no doubt about that. But he also very early on in his work talks about wisdom. And so I thought it's a little bit of a contrast. Actually, as I looked at it, I thought, have I been looking at this passage wrong my whole life? It's something to say when I'm I just turned 50 and I'm like, maybe I've gotten this passage wrong, and I've been reading this since I've been a little boy. So would somebody read James chapter 1, 5-8 for us? Because then I just want you to think as you read this, what does this have to do with Proverbs?
You read it wrong. You think we did.
Well, I'm not saying you read it wrong. You might have all been reading it right. I'm simply saying it was as I reflected on this passage, I thought, I'm not sure that I have actually been reading what James intends rightly. So.
If any of you needs wisdom, he should ask God for it. He will give it to you. God gives freely to everyone and doesn't find fault. But when you ask, you must believe. You must not doubt. That's because a person who doubts is like a wave of the sea. The wind blows and tosses them around. They shouldn't expect to receive anything from the Lord. This kind of person can't make up their mind. They can never decide what to do.
Okay, thank you very much. I like that translation. What was that one? Is that I'm just wondering, is that the New Living? It doesn't sound like the
NIR.
Oh, NIRV. Okay. The New International Revised Version, I think. That's probably what it is. Okay, nice. I thought it's actually very, very easy, though, to understand. I like that. So just in terms of, we ask God for wisdom. Why didn't the writer of Proverbs think of that? In some ways, it's kind of like how does in terms of asking God, I always kind of thought of that. You want wisdom? Is that what James is saying? Do you think? If you want wisdom, just ask God. He's going to give it to you. So in my prayers, I always thought, literally up until even recently, okay, James is talking about you want guidance and wisdom in life. Just ask God. He's going to give it to you. It's supernatural kind of download. He's going to direct my steps in some way. I don't think, by the way, I don't think I'm totally off. I do think there's something about that. God, in communication with God, He's going to direct our steps. He's going to, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 does kind of speak on this. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own ways. Acknowledge Him. He will make your path straight, right? He will steps. That's really like, it is true, but in the sense of like, we trust the Lord, are we like, is it just about prayer? Well, it seems like he's picking up a lot of those same kind of things. It's like don't lean on your own understanding. Don't doubt. Don't bring in your own or other wisdom than God's wisdom into this equation. Okay, like maybe you should have a plan B kind of thing. Well, God is saying really, I must be your one and only plan. In that. So, but do you understand what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm communicating this well. So I grew up thinking more along the lines of this is just simply about prayer and receiving. Might be from other people. I'm going to get some direction when I want to know, like, okay, I want to know what school I'm going to go to. I'm going to pray and God is going to help me to decide what to do. Should I take this job or should I take this one? Should I say yes to this offer or this kind of speaking engagement, or should I say, I'm seeking God's wisdom, he's going to tell me. Now, do you see it that way? Or do you is James fairly acquainted with Proverbs that he actually has more in mind than this? That's what I'm getting at. Do you understand my question? Is it more than simply ask God and he's going to help us? Do you understand what I'm saying? What is James talking about here? Yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah.
And you must allow his strength to finish its work. And then you will be all you should be. You will have everything you need.
Yep.
And so I think that's important in light of wisdom, because what we need is that close relationship with God. And as we walk with him, that makes us that person.
And maybe even, would you read verses 2 and 3 now that you've read 4? That's really good. But like,
brothers and sisters, you will face all kinds of trouble. When you do, think of it as pure joy. Your faith will be tested. You know that when this happens, it will produce in you the strength to continue. Yeah, and isn't that like interesting? In trials and difficulties, God is working in you. He's testing your faith and he's producing steadfastness. He's producing in you the ability to endure and to continue on. And isn't that actually really the heart of what we need above everything else? Like when you think about like the Christian life, is there anything more important than faithfulness to God? Anything more important than, in a sense, consistency, holding on to, even as he holds on to you, we're holding on to him. As Paul says, striving even after, I'm wanting to take hold of God even as he has taken hold of me, right? Like as Hebrews 12 says, let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, right? Keeping our eyes on Jesus. Like, that's what all of this is even talking about, isn't it? But then wisdom comes into play. Like if you're wondering if you've gone off track, if you're wondering whether you really are in the will of God, ask God. He's gonna help you. He's gonna sustain you. He's gonna give you wisdom. Now, what is he talking about? He's gonna give you wisdom. He's gonna give you what? Like, what do you think he means by he's going to give wisdom to those who lack it?
Well, didn't you say last week that he puts people in your path and help you with that? Because that was
True.
I was wondering.
Yeah.
What if they're not wise?
True. Okay.
But my question, no, it's true, but.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's where we need to test the spirits. We need to test the instructions that we're getting.
What I'm saying, though, like, we don't necessarily know. Sometimes I get confused about that, like asking for wisdom. If someone speaks up, that's not necessarily from God.
But maybe wisdom is more than simply knowing what to do in a particular situation. Maybe it's being skilled in living in this world in a way in which what you're supposed to do becomes almost second nature because you've been trained. You've received instruction. You've committed even in all of this, you have gone through trials. You've been tested and come out you've learned lessons even through that. And now if anybody lacks this, the answer to this, realize, is going to be more discipline, more trials, difficulties, in order that we can actually learn to walk by faith and not in ourselves. Walk by in the fear of the Lord and not putting our trust simply in what we see and in what we know. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? It's like wisdom is not simply that one piece that we need in order to make a decision. It's actually learning to be skilled in applying the word to our lives. That's why in the same chapter, in chapter 1, he goes on to talk about even the place of the word. Be doers of the word, not hearers only. That is that not even the place? That's one of the aspects of wisdom. Learning wisdom is applying ourselves to the word. Proverbs also talks about that. Make sure you take the word seriously. You spend time on it. You meditate on it. You seek the meaning and understanding of that word and apply it to our hearts.
Can I ask you a question there?
Yeah.
So when God uses bad for good, so sometimes when you make a decision and it doesn't go good, and you've really thought it was God's wisdom and you did it and you failed, so is that maybe a plan God's leading you through, whether it's not what you wanted out of the deal? Do you know what I'm saying? Because I know sometimes I made a lot of bad decisions, but I'm sure some I thought were good.
Yeah.
And I really thought God was wanting me to do that, but I don't know, like God allows things to happen.
Sure he does.
For a reason, so I'm not saying everything with wisdom has to be positive.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
I would actually say I've learned more out of the failures that I've had in missing it with God than I have out of the successes. And the reason is just because I don't think that much about my successes. It's like, okay, on to the next one. Praise the Lord. That was awesome. Thank you, Lord. Now let's move on. When I fail, man, I can't get it out of my mind. I'm like, well, I don't want that to happen again. What did I do wrong? I want to learn how to actually walk in a way that is, if I mistrusting in the Lord, if I took him for granted, if I went ahead of God kind of thing on something, if I opened my mouth too much, if I like, there's all kinds of, I want to reflect on those things. And so I learn more when I make a mistake at times. Not to say we should try to make mistakes. I'm simply saying, like, realize, God, none of that is wasted. So Ray, when you've gone through mistakes, you don't need to regret those things. You do, like, you're who you are today in many ways because you've learned from those mistakes, and you don't want to go through them again, and you don't want other people to have to go through that. It's kind of like, isn't that one of the things that you teach people in the jail is, hey, like, I made some mistakes, and God is able to actually help you move past them. God is able to bring you forgiveness, give you strength, and actually wisdom so that you don't repeat those same mistakes. Right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know, you're 100% right, because that's what my testimony is with those men, which I thought was useless, but God said, no, you got a place to go on Friday nights.
Yeah, that's right.
No, but it's true though, like those men, I understand that those men need to hear how God can redeem. Because that's a big thing, that their lives can be redeemed by God.
Exactly.
No matter how bad its situation.
And so, you know what, we need to hear sometimes of people's failures, because otherwise we kind of feel ashamed being among the people of God, don't we? Like, I don't measure up. Everybody's always giving a good testimony, and all I have is that I can think recently is actually negative experiences. And it's like, well, we all go through those. We all have it where we miss it, don't we? But that's part of being part of the people of God and walking in forgiveness and grace, and actually we have to learn how to overcome those things, that we don't get trapped in those, because there's a lot of people that feel trapped in their mistakes, trapped in sin. And the gospel says, that's not the end of your story. Yeah.
We want to share good testimonies.
Are you allowed? You're allowed to share. Oh, we love. Yeah. Yeah.
We love to hear good testimonies.
Yeah.
We love to give good testimonies. Sometimes those testimonies sound and feel like you know, we were waiting on the Lord for this, and then it happened,
Right.
like all of a sudden. And we forget to talk about the struggle we went through.
Mhm.
We forget to say how many years we might have prayed for someone to get saved. Like I prayed for someone for 18 years before I saw God move in his life. And I think we forget to share the faithfulness of
Mhm.
hanging on to God, of hanging on to the scriptures. What does the word say? What does the word say that often is very different from how we're feeling?
Yeah, no, that's good. So,
And we forget.
right. So James, for example, at the end of his book, he'll talk about the story of Elijah, and he asked, when we think of Elijah, probably the story you think of is Mount Carmel and fire coming down from heaven, and the repentance of Israel during that time. Pretty awesome. But James reminds us that Elijah prayed that it wouldn't rain, and it didn't rain for 3.5 years, and then he prayed that it would rain, and it rained. It's reminded, but we love to focus on the, it rained. He prayed, and we love that, and it's good. We love to focus on the prayer of he fervently prayed, and finally the rain came, and so on. But it's as my mom said, there's 3.5 years of faithfulness on the part of Elijah, and that would have been. We know it was a very difficult time for Israel and for him. So, but in the end, God brought a great fruitful, aspect of forgiveness or repentance and forgiveness was displayed, and so on there. So we need to understand learning wisdom, and I think James is very aware of this. Learning wisdom is not going to be easy. Receiving wisdom is not going to be like a download. And I think that's what I'm saying, that I've often thought of is, in some ways, it's an impartation, but it's as much a learning of a skill and a development of a character as it is about God speaking to us about what we're supposed to do. Not that doesn't happen. I believe in the spiritual gifts. I believe in a word of knowledge and a word of wisdom. But when James is talking about wisdom, I think he's actually talking more about what Proverbs is getting at. So would somebody read Proverbs 2:1-8 for us? I'll come to you after. Yeah.
My son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding. Yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He stores up wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice and watching over the ways of his saints.
I thought maybe that's what James is actually thinking of. If you call out for it, if you desire it, you want this above everything else, then he's going to give it to you. And notice it's going to be through his opening his mouth. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. I think there's a close association between the word of God and the wisdom of God. We're going to receive the wisdom of God by meditating, thinking on, desiring to apply the word of God to our lives. And sometimes we need help. What does that look like? What does it look like for us? We can't do everything in terms of saving the world. We can't, we're to make disciples of all nations. We'll recognize that's the whole church's responsibility. It can be overwhelming. So even for, I'm a pastor leading a small church. What is it that God is calling me to do? What is it that God is calling each of us to do in participating in his plan and purpose? That's going to take some wisdom. What is it that God calls us to do on a daily basis? Some of it's going to be exactly the same. What we're doing tonight, gathering together for Bible study, coming to church, applying, worshiping together. That's all part of the wisdom of God. But what do we do the other 100, whatever it is, how many hours, 140 or whatever hours that's going to be after we do those things, we still have a lot of time. What do we do? Part of it is going to involve sleeping, making sure you get your rest. Some of it is going to involve working. Some of it is going to involve rest and enjoyment of life. Some of it is going to involve service. Some of it is in giving of our lives for other things, isn't it? So we need to make sure that we are seeking the Lord's wisdom though on how to live, specifically God's calling even upon our lives. Because I very much believe, just as he has a calling for the leaders of the church, he has a calling for every person, every Christian. He doesn't have any favorites. He very much has a calling upon every person and wants to reveal that to them and walk with them in it. It is part of my joy to help people to see some of those things. But at the same time, there's also something about God revealing it. Very specially, he reveals it to us, each individually as well. Now, would somebody read Proverbs 28, verse 5?
Viewers do not understand what is right, but those who seek the Lord understand it fully.
Okay, so thank you. I think evil men don't understand justice, but those who seek the Lord understand it completely. And that's kind of awesome. Like, we have an understanding of justice because we know the Lord. We fear him. He's revealed it to us. We also understand we're not to take this into our own hands and make it like we're not going to bring about the righteousness of God. We leave room for him to work and move. But yet we're still committed to seeking God's justice and peace in this world. Okay, Ray has a question.
So, yeah, for Solomon, for instance, I always thought of this like he was just a normal man, and I know he probably was smart in a lot of ways, but
yeah,
when God gave him wisdom that he asked for, then people would come all over the world to see him about his wisdom and that. But see, that was just a God-given, like a miracle, Phil, because, I mean, he didn't study all that knowledge or do any of that, right?
No, we probably did. Like, I think that's also a misunderstanding regarding Solomon, as he actually did learn and grow up. Like, David had a great fear and respect for the Lord, loved his word. We have to think that he actually passed that on to his son. We find remember, that's one of the beautiful things about First Chronicles is that we actually have David talking to his son and preparing him for the building of the temple, for living though righteously before the Lord. And so we do have him as a son. I think we can, some of these things, like Solomon is remembering even his own father teaching him. Very possible. Solomon is relating what David actually would have said. The Psalms are filled with wisdom in terms of learning that from God. I had a passage, actually. I'm just wondering, Psalm 111, verse 10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Doesn't that sound like Proverbs? Okay, anyway, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All those who practice it have a good understanding. Well, that sounds like what we just read too. And then it goes on. This is where you remember it's a psalm. His praise endures forever. We were reminded of that. But beautiful. And this is probably to be thought of as, whether it is or not, probably thought of as a Psalm of David. Follows Psalm 110. So anyway, I think we sometimes think Solomon was very special receiving this deposit and he was in some ways, like there was no one as smart as had the heart of understanding for his people that Solomon had. The Queen of Sheba comes and says, blessed are your people who have you, who God has given them you to be over them and to rule and reign. So you're right on in a certain way, but it would have been discipline. He had to apply himself to these things. Wisdom isn't simply like snap your fingers and you have it. We have to see that also with Jesus. Did Jesus, it actually says he grew in wisdom. Like, we take a look at, we think, like, how did the Son of God grow in wisdom? Because he was fully human. He came as a baby, and he experienced all that humanity does in terms of growing up. And so Luke chapter 2, 40 and 52, if you want to look, you see the growth of the Son of God in terms of knowledge, wisdom, in stature, in terms of an honor before others and before God. So if that was for Jesus, and there was nobody as wise as Jesus, would all agree? Great as Solomon was, I mean, clearly he doesn't rise up or really isn't able to measure up against Jesus. But both of Solomon didn't get it simply as a download either. he also would have had to work at it. Otherwise, how could he teach it, for one thing? How could he give us? It's because he's been thinking on it. Now, it may, in some ways, have become more natural for him. God may have opened up Proverbs and riddles and even helped. I mean, I think it's actually something really cool. It's one thing to be able to understand Proverbs and riddles. I think often we can all have that understanding. I don't just think about me. We can all gain that understanding. It's totally something else to come up with Proverbs and riddles. Right? Like that takes a toll. It's like there are those who like to laugh at jokes, right? Like I like to laugh at jokes. There are those who actually make up jokes that people laugh at, right? Like that takes a different kind of person in order to do that, doesn't it? And I think that's partly gifting, for sure. But in terms of wisdom, it was a giftedness, but it was also discipline. It was also the Spirit of God worked together with him. And it's important to understand that Jesus also isn't different in that category. But I mean, like our language, just an example, our language is hard. Is it hard to learn languages? Generally, I mean, it is hard. I mean, I know that God gives people an understanding and ability to learn multiple languages and have that ability, and it just comes. Now, I don't say easy. It comes though over time. They will amaze themselves. I was amazed at what God did for me. I thought, how in the world am I supposed to do my PhD? I was told by my advisor, you have to know all the languages that you're going to be using in the original languages. So like when you have an article in Italian, translate that from Italian. Don't have a translation from it. Like you do the work. You find it in whether it was Italian or French or Spanish, German, lots of German, all these languages. And I thought, I thought, how in the world am I ever going to do this? But over just simply days of applying myself and prayer, believe me, I prayed a lot. God helped me through that period of time. And when it came to the PhD defense, and I stood before others, and I had lots of these kind of, expressions and so on in my PhD, and I knew they could ask me anything, and I was confident they can ask me anything. I know it. And that's the Spirit of God. Like he helps us. Because I definitely did not feel adequate, but by the Spirit of God, he makes us adequate. He gives us what we need. And I can definitely say it's not because I'm just so smart, because I'm not, but it is the Spirit of God that comes alongside of us and equips us for what he calls us to. He doesn't call the equipped. He equips the called. So that's why it's a beautiful thing to discover what you're called for and then to trust him that he'll equip you, he'll help you. That doesn't mean, just as wisdom is like in terms of applied and grown in, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. But he promises, as we've seen in Proverbs chapter 2, as we've looked at Proverbs 28, and as we've seen in James, it's God promises to give this to us. But we have to be, essentially, I would just say it's like all in. We have to trust him and we have to do what we're called to do. So do it. Do the best that you can in that. Now let's talk did you say what you needed to say? I can't remember. You're good. Okay. I can't remember whether, okay. Anyway, you got it. Okay. Okay. So the wise person, there are 3 words or phrases used to describe this individual in Proverbs. You have wise, you have the man of understanding, and you have the prudent person. Okay. This individual is the opposite of the fool at every place. So you have this contrast constantly in Proverbs between the wise person and the fool. Now the wise person earnestly desires and seeks wisdom and knowledge. And we've seen that already in Proverbs chapter 2. It's the calling. But would somebody read Proverbs 18:15 for us? Okay, so why would a wise person or an intelligent heart and a wise person, why would they seek to acquire knowledge? Why is that? They're already wise. More knowledge. Also, the wise person is humble, realizing how much he doesn't know. He or she doesn't know. And so that's actually, it's an interesting thing. The more that you study, the more that you should come to an understanding of realizing there's so much you don't know. There's so much to know. And I find that like in my PhD, I know a lot about a very narrow subject, but there's so much that I don't know. Like, and I mean like that as in a sea, of books and learning. I know I've just a drop, and it literally is like that. So what that did for me is I need to apply myself to learning. I'm going to live a life of learning because I see how valuable it is, important it is, exciting it is to learn this. And so I'm going to give myself over to that. I realize that's, again, part of my calling is to do. Not everybody, for some reason, not everybody gets excited about reading books, spending their time studying, right? Like there are those that don't like to go to school. They're glad they're done school, or they're really looking forward to going to school, or not going to school, or that kind of thing. How are you doing, Vincent? You feeling okay there? Yeah, that's right. So some aren't that excited. And you know what? God gives us what we need for the season. Like he helps us through. And so there are people at Bible college who after a year, they're like, I'm so glad I'm finished. Like they were called to go for a year. There are those that go for 4 years and are like, I just can't wait to be finished kind of thing. Like, right. And then I had a conversation with a student at college, and he said, you know what? I'm done. I'm finishing. I think he's there for his 5th year of a 4-year degree. And he was saying, I'm so glad that I'm finished, but I know I'm going back, but I need a break. I'm just tired. And I said, you know what? If you can take a break, take a break. Because God, if you're called to study, you won't be able to do anything, but God will call you back to studying. And that was definitely my experience. I did a lot of education. I took a year off, and by about month 5 or 6, I just felt like I'm missing it. I just can't wait to go back. And then when I was doing my PhD, I was enjoying it so much. Naomi says, okay, you have to promise you're not doing a second one, right? Like just only one is enough. So it goes along with your wisdom is part of our lives, part of our calling. Now, not like realize everyone is called to wisdom. We're all called to walk in wisdom and truth. So that's going to be receiving and instruction. It goes along, of course, with the whole idea of being a disciple of Jesus. That means simply a learner as well. So how is a wise person characterized? So let's talk about this. Proverbs talks about this in a number of ways. Proverbs 15:7. Would somebody read that for us? And we'll see does this characterize a wise person?
The lips of the wise spread knowledge, but the hearts of fools are not upright.
Okay, so what is that saying about? There's a contrast between the wise and the fools here very clearly. What's it saying here about the wise person?
They absorb knowledge.
They absorb it, yeah. And also even the idea of, some of you might have some other translations that helps you.
Disperse would mean share it.
Disperse means share. So you want to share what you have. Why in the world would you want to share what you have? Because it's good stuff, right? Like this has helped me. When you have, if a person knows how to get a good deal on a car, right? They're going to want to share that with people, right? And that can really make people feel good about getting a good deal on a car, right? I'm just looking at Andre and just smiling because, if you want a good deal on a car, talk to Andre. He's a good guy. He knows his cars and so on. He's a good help. But I mean, really, like you gain knowledge. The wise person wants to help other people with it. And that's kind of exciting, isn't it? Like when you have a desire to help others with what you've learned, that shows that you've gained wisdom and even God's wisdom. All right, let's take a look at Proverbs 12, verse 18. Did I say that right? Proverbs 12, verse 18. Is that what I said? Okay, that's good.
The word of the reckless pierces like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings good.
Okay, so there are those that they use their words and they're like cutting. You know anybody like that? That when they talk, it's like you're cut, you're wounded after you talk to them, right? You're only going to want to be around that person or those kind of people so often, right? You're going to need time to heal. For sure. So what about the wise? It actually brings healing. Isn't that cool? Being around people, like you're like, man, I just feel like I'm better after being with that person. Do you know anybody like that? That after you spend time with them, you feel like you're better. you may have even received healing. So the wise is like that. They bring healing to others. What about Proverbs 11, verse 12? So just going back a little bit here.
Whoever derides their neighbor has no sense, but the one who has understanding holds their tongue.
Okay, so what is that says? At times there's going to be something you're going to need to say, and it's going to bring healing. At other times, it may actually just do damage, and so you know when to. Yeah, you know when to shut. Sometimes, have you ever felt that it's just time to just close your mouth? We definitely, I think most of us know when that doesn't happen, when we don't close our mouth, right? And we're like, man, that did not go well, right? I know that I've sometimes had to apologize for that. Sometimes it feels like daily, but like, it's sometimes we definitely need to and I say that because I'm very aware of that as a teacher. I have definitely the power in my mouth to bring healing, and I also have the power in my mouth to hurt. And I need to be very careful about that. The more you talk, the more really, wisdom you need as you do so.
Good advice for a guy getting married.
There, well, absolutely.
Well,
It's true. It's
I
true.
learned it the hard way. I thought, man, I could've just shut up.
Yeah,
The night would have been much better.
you're not wrong. Okay. Proverbs 14:29. Would somebody like to read that? 14:29.
Whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered is placed before you.
Okay, so what do we see there? It actually puts these in stark contrast. The one who has a hasty temper or a quick-tempered, they're like in the foolish camp, aren't they? The one who is slow to anger, patient, has great understanding. And so do we like? So the wise person is slow to anger. Is God slow to anger? Kind of makes sense too, doesn't it? That's God, but
I said,
thank God that he absolutely. But sometimes we don't think that about God. That's why I mention it. Sometimes we think God is quick to anger. And so we want to remember that he is slow to anger, and how often he holds back any anger that he would have toward people, and us included. Okay. Proverbs 29:8. Somebody read that one.
29:8.
Yep.
Scoffers set a city aflame, but wise men turn away wrath.
So that's the opposite here. Even the scorners are going to incite anger and strife in other people. They're going to instigate, inflame situations, right? The wise person knows when, on one hand, to be quiet, and also there is something to be said for de-escalating situations. Sometimes I think Jesus talks about this in terms of being a peacemaker. And so it's not enough just for wise people to be at peace, where Jesus calls us to be those who actually bring it and enable and help that. So, how are you doing when it comes to bringing peace and that idea of de-escalation in situations? All right, Proverbs 21:20. Somebody read that one.
In the house of the wise are stores of choice food and wine, but a foolish man borrows all he has.
Okay, so sometimes people live in like feast or famine. Have you ever seen that? Where when the money comes in, they just are spending it like there's no tomorrow. And then they have to really just scrounge because they didn't save in the times of plenty. It kind of feels like Alberta right now in some ways, right? Anyway, in the sense of we have had I remember when Alberta was giving checks away, here, every person is getting $400 remember that? We got checks. That was an amazing, amazing time. And I think we wondered, is there a better use for this money? Anyway, I didn't complain. I did spend it. Yeah, we loved it, right? Bring it on, right? I do think I can probably spend money better than the government does, for sure, right? So, but yeah, anyway, the idea here, we're gonna sometimes the wise person is frugal, is actually doesn't spend money according to what they make. This is actually, I've been actually doing a lot of thinking about this. I very much believe God's people should live in a place where if people look at you, they should think that you make less than what you do. And the reason is because you're not living above your means, and you're giving part of that away, and you're even saving part of it. That's what the wise person is called to do. Save for times of famine, for example. And maybe you'll be all right, but maybe somebody else will need it. So it isn't a selfish thing to actually put saving away. So anyway, the wise person is one who takes their resources seriously. All right, so Proverbs 14, verse 6.
Democracy seeks wisdom and finds none, but knowledge comes easily to the discerning.
Okay, so or is that the right one? Okay, so did I say 14 verse 6? I did. Okay, that's a good one. But let's go to 14 verse 16. Okay, so I'm having trouble with numbers. 14, 16. Do you want to read it, Fred?
The wise fear the Lord and shun evil, but a fool is hot-headed and yet feels secure.
So that's a pretty good one in terms of one who is wise is cautious and turns away from evil. So you're not running headlong. You're actually thinking through your actions. You take care and I think this is part of living a life of reflection. You actually take enough time to actually think things through. And so the fool on the other hand is reckless and careless. I think like in terms of, it's obvious in certain situations. When I used to ski as a youth, I used to love jumping. But I've learned fairly quickly that you should always know what's on the other side of a jump. There could be rocks on the other side. You could assume that the hill is going to go down, but it could be flat. And actually, no, that's just because I still had to relearn and learn it again. But yes, thank you, Naomi. I think she's thinking of some kind of incident that happened like 8 years ago. Yeah. I ended up in the emergency room that night. Yes, it was limping around for about 8 weeks. Okay. Yeah, that's right. I had forgotten about that incident, sort of. But anyway, yes. A wife keeps you honest. All right. So there are we could call them consequences, but also in terms of rewards for the wise person. Would somebody read Proverbs 9:9 for us?
Instruct the wise, and they will be wiser still. Teach the righteous, and they will add to their learning.
So we see that actually we can continue gaining in wisdom and in understanding. Would somebody read Proverbs 24, verse 5?
The wise prevail through great power, and those who have knowledge master their strength.
So this is where we actually want to get stronger as we go. They're characterized as full of strength and enhancing might, rather than getting weaker as we go through life. So in some ways, there's weakness is inevitable for humanity in terms of getting older. But on the other hand, there's a strength of character. There is something about staying on one hand young at heart, and on the other hand, actually gaining in strength, how would you characterize a strength as you get older? Like, in what ways would you say a person gets stronger as they age? Because we know physically that isn't always the case, and usually is not.
I think it's built on the confidence of God. For myself, that's what I feel like.
Absolutely.
Confidence and faithfulness.
Absolutely. You grow in confidence, grow in hope, don't you? Like your hope is just so real, isn't it? Like I know that when I was younger, I actually kind of like the idea, I thought the idea of you can't really know whether God and heaven and so on, but I choose to believe that. That was kind of when I was quite young, in my early teens or younger, even that's how I thought. But as I grew older, I realized, no, I can have great confidence in now. I really don't think that there's even any reason to give even any thought to the idea that there isn't a God, that there isn't heaven. And that just doesn't even for me make any sense at all. I can't even, it's hard for me even to fathom a world in which God isn't taking care and holding us in it, in that sense. So I think we grow in our faith and in confidence and in knowledge and so on. So there's probably can you think of any other ways in terms of how you would say a person grows stronger as they get older? Yeah.
Through experience, right?
Yeah.
You just know how to do things better, right? Like a young person might conjure like all their strength and move something by sheer will. And then someone with a little experience would be like, well, you could have saved a lot of effort if you just bring that card over here.
Yeah, that's true, right? Think, or do, what is it, act smarter, or, not.
Or,
That's it, yeah.
You bring a group together to do it or something, right? Like there's just other ways, and then just because you've been down that road a few times, you're like, okay, we have a few options here, and brute force doesn't have to be the first go-to.
Absolutely. No, that's really good. Anybody else have anything to add? Yeah, go ahead, Ray.
Well, to me, what I've really found, and I've talked with my son and actually my sisters, what I found getting older is seeing older people move on to be with the Lord. And I think with my age now, I'm at a point, and I really believe that I think more about heaven now and walking and thinking about that phrase, well done, good and faithful servant, than I did when I was younger. Because you know what? I know when the calendar goes, my days are going. And, I think sometimes when we're younger, we're invincible.
Of course, yeah.
We're going to keep going. But I think when you get older, especially being at church, I hear people passing away, even in my family and that. And I even told my sister that. I said, Joan, we're getting older. Tomorrow we're not guaranteed. So I said, we got to walk. Like I think more about walking each day closer to God because of me getting older.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that's a real strength for sure. Would somebody read Proverbs 3:35?
The wise inherit honor, but fools get shame.
Okay, so wise will inherit honor. That's I think it's part at least what Ray is talking about. Well done. We can expect actually an honorable response from God for our lives when we've sought to live in the fear of the Lord, when we've sought to honor Him. That's what we should expect because of what He's done for us. All right, let's go on to Proverbs 10 verse 1. Okay, thank you. So now there's a contrast there, obviously. I do think, actually, just so you know, I do think he's playing around a little bit here. I think a wise son actually makes his father and mother glad. But I'm just saying. But do you see? Actually, we bring joy to our parents, to our families when we walk in wisdom. And actually, I can't think of anything more that warms my heart to know that my kids are actually following Jesus. Like, there's probably nothing, right? There's nothing in the world that actually compares with that. They're seeking to actually walk rightly. And I say that about them, but I feel that way about all of you in that sense of, like, many of you I've known for a lot of years. And I look around and I'm like, I'm just so proud. It just really makes my heart so, warm and so on. But that's so, isn't that the way we feel about each other? Like when we see each other walking in wisdom, it actually does make us joyful. That word, just to remind you, that word glad doesn't really nearly capture what's behind that as a reminder. Okay. That's mostly what I wanted to talk about. Maybe one more. These are also good. I'm going to move on to another section here in our last minutes here. But would somebody read Proverbs 13, verse 20 for us?
He who walks with the wise grows wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm.
So this is something like the wise person who wants to be wise, wiser, will walk with those who are wise themselves. They become more wise. Like the person who is seeking out wisdom will seek out wise people. And actually, I think there's always people that are wiser than you. It's actually important to recognize that. We should have a place of humility. And I know that like there's always going to be people that I can go to, and I have that pleasure of walking with people that are much more wise than myself. I have a monthly meeting at least once a month with somebody who I'm just like, I know I'm better off when I'm with them, and so on. I'm better off for meeting together with them. And it does say, you spend too much time with fools, what's going to happen? Well, you'll probably become a fool yourself. They're going to rub off on you. But at the very least, even if that doesn't happen, you're going to suffer. It's going to be a painful experience. I can think of a time where I walked with a fool and got attached to them, and I ended up, it was a great grief of my heart. They walked away. I don't know whether they experienced grief of walking. I experienced great grief and just so much pain. But in the end, I mean, I think, they were not committed to walking a wise life, in a wise life. So
You either fly with seagulls or eagles.
Yeah.
Your choice.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. Yeah, there you go.
Well, yeah, seagulls are.
As I see, not everybody can make a proverb, right? Good job. There you go. No, I'm like, that's catchy. That's good, Ray. I like it.
Instead of being at the garbage dump with the seagulls.
I like that. That's good. I mean, I don't like being at the garbage dump. Don't be wrong. That's good. Okay. All right. Well, with that, we're going to move. That was good. I like it. Okay, let's explore a little bit of James. Just one verse, actually. We're going to end tonight. We have 18 minutes. So I'm not biting off more than I can chew tonight. Okay, so one verse, that's all we're going to look at. No, that's not quite true. But we're going to look at James 1:19. Would somebody read that verse for us?
My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry.
That's good. I like that. But quick to read the word of God. Okay, so that's good. I just noticed, Barb, you didn't probably know, like Sola was back there reading. It was actually a symphony. Both of you were just beautifully in tune. Both of you were quick to read. It was good. Okay, so James is giving this advice, three admonitions here. Every person is to be like this. I actually think how we should put this into practice. How many problems will actually be resolved if we can just take these things to heart. So, and we're going to explore through Proverbs, these three sayings. So, the first part, quick to hear. Well, we could take them together. Quick to hear and slow to speak. Would somebody read Proverbs 10:19?
Not to change the subject before we read.
Oh,
Did
yep.
James not believe in Jesus for a while?
Right. So he's the brother of Jesus. And during his earthly ministry, for example, in John chapter 7, it clearly states his brothers did not believe in him. They actually are having a mocking, kind of interestingly in terms of Proverbs, they have a mocking attitude towards him. But by the time of his resurrection, they've come back. And at Pentecost, they're there with the disciples. So that's why, I mean, he returned back at some point. We don't know exactly when that happened, but definitely between John chapter 7, perhaps the middle of Jesus' ministry, and before the end, James returns. So Proverbs 10:19. Would somebody read that for us? Okay, so here we have the idea of restraining your lips rather than like letting your words be many, kind of thing. So this idea of quick to hear and slow to speak comes into play. This is but there's actually quite a few Proverbs that talk about this. I didn't mention it because we're not in Ecclesiastes. You could also write down for further reference Ecclesiastes 5:1-2. Very similar idea in terms of taking thought to your words. But we won't look at that tonight. Maybe when we're in Ecclesiastes. Okay, Proverbs 17, 27 to 28. Would somebody read these verses? So I think we read 27 maybe already, but. Proverbs 17, 27 to 28.
A man of knowledge uses words with restraint, and a man of understanding is even-tempered. Even a fool is taught wise if he keeps silent, and discerning if he holds his tongue.
Okay, so it's kind of an interesting contrast of these two verses. So to restrain your words, and as James says, to be slow to speak. He who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. That is one in which you're not troubled by things, but also you are. I think the implication is here he's quick to hear. It doesn't need to be the center of attention and where everybody is listening to him. And it goes on then. If a fool keeps silent is considered wise. It's true. Like those who really don't know much, they might be naive, they might have some really weird ideas. And I mean that, like, you meet people who are like conspiracy theorists and so on. If they just would be quiet, people would think that's a really good chap, or that young lady is really nice. Like, but when they open their mouth, it's like, okay, I don't really want to be around them anymore. That person is really rubbing me the wrong way, or that kind of idea. So just note, like, there is something to be said for learning to speak less as opposed to more. And one of the reasons that James is saying this clearly is so that we would have an opportunity to learn, as opposed to speak from a place of ignorance. We don't want to pass on ignorance. We want to be in a place of helping others, as we've seen from true wisdom, right?
We did read this, but I've read it before.
Yep.
And since we're in Proverbs, I want to ask
Sure.
what this word brother means.
Okay.
On 17, verse 17, it
Okay.
says a friend loves at all times.
Oh, yes.
And a brother is born for adversity.
Yeah.
So when that brother part comes in,
Mhm.
or where is that brother word used in that adversity compared to like the friend?
Okay.
I thought of that a few times.
Well, it's interesting. And this is speaking of a true friend. You call yourself a friend, then you're not one that is a fair weather one. So be a true friend. A true friend is one who loves at all times. And then the brother is also, you can depend on him, especially in times of trouble. You're able to go to your brother and ask for help. That's what family is for.
He's there to help them.
Right. And a brother should be considered a friend. Like, it's not less than or that kind of idea. Yeah.
I read it in the negative sense.
Yeah, no, that's a very positive one for sure. You're allowed to ask questions. You don't have to be. That's a wise person who asks for help. Okay, so Proverbs 18 verse 13. This is the last one on this section. Then we're going to go into the anger aspect. We've already looked at this a little bit. We'll continue. But Proverbs 18:13. Okay, so when you answer before you hear, have you ever done that where it's like, I think most of us have, right? We've experienced that. I know what you're going to say, and like, that's not what I was going to say, like, right? Like, so or I know what you're thinking. Have you ever done that? Like, I know what you're thinking. And it's like, that's not what I was thinking. You got it so far wrong. And that can very much get us into trouble. As it says, that can lead to shame being upon. And so it would be better if we actually listen to what people don't. I've learned this in marriage. I definitely shouldn't assume that I know what Naomi is thinking. Like, I need to actually ask her, seek that out. And she can't also assume that I know what she's thinking. Like, we had to learn that early on. Like, she has to tell me, right? Like, it had to go both ways. It's all about communication.
You know what? Silent and listen have the same letters.
Silent and listen. That's cool.
They
Yeah,
have the same letters, so.
that's interesting. That's really good.
Silent and listen.
Yeah, that's good. There you go. I mean, that's almost what do you got? Yeah, a proverb or a riddle. There you go. That's 2 tonight, Ray. Woo. I didn't bring any medals tonight, but okay. Yeah, there you go. All right, let's go to anger. We have 10 minutes left, so we have enough time for sure. We looked at one already, 14:29. If you want to jot that down, you can. this is under, of course, slow to anger. So, but would somebody read Proverbs 15:18 for us?
Above 10 persons there's a conflict, but the one who is patient has no quarrel.
Okay, so here you have the hot-tempered person. That is somebody who is fast, quick-tempered, essentially. And this is a person who is like, many of us have been in this situation where we continue the argument. We continue when things are already going badly, and we're just making things worse. This would also be called escalating the situation and the conflict. And it's of course the slow to anger person is actually de-escalating and bringing things back to a place of peace. And so it is putting this in parallel. Which consequence do you want? Do you want strife? Because that's what you're going to get as you continue to stir this up, or do you want peace? And it actually is within our grasp very often to actually make this decision. Sometimes it's as simple as just being quiet and just stop talking. And again, who am I talking to here? Probably Naomi's like, yeah, you need to work on this, John. Okay, so Proverbs 16:32. Would somebody read that?
Better a patient person than a warrior, one with self-control than one who takes a city.
Okay, so here we have anger. Then again, the idea of being slow to anger. This is pretty cool, and I think this is opposite of the way we often think, especially in this situation. Anger is very powerful. Do you realize, like, you can... I know in my life, there was a time where I was convinced that it was good for me to be angry because of the result I'm in. I'm getting good results here. I show a little anger, and then I realize it's not making me feel good. It's not making other people feel good too. It's probably not good for my blood pressure, not good for my life, and so on either. It's all in very many ways it's bad. But so just maybe, like, this is a proverb. So I don't want to assume that everybody understands that. Why is being slow to anger better than the mighty and better than the one who rules? I think it's a parallel thought. The one who rules his spirit, keeps his temper in check, is better than one who takes a city. Why is that the case? Like, can somebody explain that for us? Yeah, Vincent?
I think it goes back to that conversation about strength. It's like that strength is character, your ability to control yourself, which is way more strength than a person who's able to fight and conquer something.
Absolutely. If you give in to your anger, it actually shows you're actually weak in character. You're weak in this particular area. It doesn't mean you're poor in every area, but this is definitely an area that's out of control. And it's one that is, the idea is you are not much of a warrior, a spiritual warrior here in this particular case, right?
When I think of anger, a lot of times growing up, we all heard sticks and stones don't break your bones, words will never hurt you. But it's funny, like, I know growing up, you can punch someone and they'll get over it. If you say something out of your anger, like 20 years later, they'll say it to you. You know what I mean? And you can't suck that back up.
You can't. It's gone.
And I think that's probably some of the hardest stuff I had to deal with in my life, is some of the words I said in my anger.
Yeah.
Like, I'd have been better off to throw a rock at them. They'd have forgot it by now. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Probably better off not throwing rocks. But yeah, like, let's but I do get what you're getting. I mean, who knows? I do totally know what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm just saying though, like that, especially guys, like, you can get in a fist fight and your friends next day, but you say something rude to them and you're done.
Yeah, it's true. You can't take words back. I mean, like, there is a measure of trust being broken in terms of sometimes when things are said, like, there is the idea of burning bridges and all of that kind of stuff. Like, we don't want to do that. You don't want to say something you'll regret that you can't take back. Grace is an amazing thing, but you absolutely can't count on it from everybody. Like, and it's, if they give it to you, that's wonderful, but there may be consequences where that relationship is totally destroyed because of what we do. In that sense of, like, you could tear down a city, you could burn a city down, as opposed to, like, in terms of with your anger. Okay, no, how important, like, is this anybody feeling guilty or feeling like they need God's help kind of thing? And of course we do, right? Proverbs should lead us to that place of, we want to grow in this. We all are on this road of, we need the Spirit and His grace to help us. And the beautiful thing is it's there for us. I know that he wants us to grow and will help us. Okay, Proverbs 19:11. We're almost done, only 3 more passages, and we'll be done tonight. And last 3 passages on slow to anger.
The person's wisdom gives patience. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense.
So here you have to, oftentimes we get angry because we're offended, right? Like that's what causes anger even to come up in us. And so Jesus makes mention of this kind of thing. Be slow to take offense. Like don't take the offense quickly. Think about it. Be forgiving if it's possible. If it is something that's actually really hurtful and they've sinned against you, what's our responsibility? Is to go to them. So go to them and talk to them. So if you find that you're not able to simply forgive and really in many ways forget, you're not able to move on from that, that's an indication that you need to go and talk to them. Because what happens if you won't go and talk to someone when that happens? Bitterness will take root. And you don't know where that ends, in the sense of it will affect every part of who you are. You might at one time been a very happy person, joyful person. Bitterness takes root. You can become a very sour, sad, depressed kind of person for sure. So, and this is good sense. Of course, it makes good sense to be slow to anger. All right, Proverbs 22, 24 to 25.
Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go, lest you learn his ways and set a snare for your soul.
This is pretty important, isn't it? In terms of we're not to be angry ourselves, and we need to be careful about essentially aligning ourselves with people who are angry. Why would that be the case? It says in terms of we might learn his ways for sure, but why would that happen?
You get attached to that person's name and stuff. Like if you're hanging around with people like that, you're part of his identity.
You are, yeah.
You can change your identity by hanging around those people.
Absolutely.
Even if you're not like that.
100%.
You're still connected.
I mean, the thing is, with the destructive nature of anger, and you are giving assent to that, you will take that on. It will change you to be around such a person and actually being okay with it. Yeah.
So my version says, and you get, or you may learn his ways and get yourself ensnared.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yep.
the idea being that this guy's gonna get into a lot of trouble with his anger,
Mhm.
and you're gonna care about them, and you're gonna be like, it's gonna be your trouble too.
Mhm.
Like, it's not just his trouble. You're gonna be there. You're gonna have to deal with it.
You might have to bail him out.
Some way, bail him
right?
out, help him out. I don't know, whatever
Yep.
but like that, it's your issue.
It's kind of similar to an alcoholic, isn't it? You might enter into enabling behavior with that. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Nobody took that seriously. It's you had a right to be angry. That was really negative. How they treated you and that kind of thing. And so you're enabling that, accepting that, and also you're in danger of actually taking that on yourself. Sola?
And others say, show me your friend.
Mm.
I will tell you who you are.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all about that.
That's really good. Yeah.
Sometimes you try to avoid these people with bad behavior or with anger and all those things, and they keep pushing your button.
Mhm.
How can you deal with that? Because sometimes you close your eyes to it, like, you know what? This person is crazy.
Mm.
I don't want to be seen the same way.
Oh, absolutely.
But you keep pushing.
Mhm.
How do you handle that?
And one of the things that you might do eventually is actually respond to fire with fire. Like maybe you're not an angry person, but eventually it will get to a boiling point, and you should have left a long time ago before it ever reached such a situation.
I
Yeah.
heard a good thing from a psychologist before too, is it's like dogs with pack mentality. Is you can have a dog that's completely harmless, and when there's 7 dogs and they're attacking someone to kill, that innocent dog will join in on
Yeah.
the thing.
Wow.
And I look
Yeah.
at a lot of these young kids, like I thought of those kids that killed that guy at Grant Harry Ainley. And I was reading about some of them, like 13, 14, 15. And they were good kids, and they were with a group of 10 people, and they started kicking this kid. And chances are they did that because they didn't want to be out of the group.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
and that pack mentality.
Yeah.
They said, I even heard prisoners that I deal with, and they look like they're 14 years old and they're in there, but they're obviously 17 or 18 gotta be. And they admit, like, they just made a bad choice.
Who they hung around with, for sure. One last verse, and then we're going to call it a night. Proverbs 29:22. Our last text of the evening.
An angry person stirs conflict, and a hot-tempered person commits many sins.
That's actually a reminder to us in terms of our anger isn't going to just affect people, but it's actually against God. We will actually offend our maker by doing so. There's a number of reasons coming back to the beginning. Remember, God is slow to anger. And when we act in a way that's different than him as his image bearers and so on, we're hurting his heart and his mind. And also, of course, as we've been talking about tonight, it can lead us into all kinds of places that we would never go otherwise. But our anger takes us there. So we want to make sure we keep our anger in check. We want to deal with it. You have to be honest with it. Don't deny your anger. Deal with it. Don't let the sun go down on your anger, as we see, for example, I think it's Ephesians that talks about that, and it's also a quotation from the Old Testament as well. So we need to deal with our anger. God he does experience anger, and we are in some ways like him, but we need to make sure we learn from God in terms of how gracious, patient he is, and making sure that we are, as the Proverbs say and so on, that we're slow to anger. And that's where we're going to end in tonight. We're all on this road. So if you need help, I should say on something like this, on an area where God is at work in your heart, you don't know what to do, ask somebody for help. That's the wise thing to do. There are many counselors in this room. And I mean, people who are wise, committed to walking in the fear of the Lord, and we're happy to help you. So anyway, say that. Naomi, we have an announcement, I think, to make. Did you want to make it?
2 quick announcements.
Yes.
The choir tomorrow night, for those who want to be part of the Easter singing, a couple songs, just show up at 7 o'clock. Also, we got a tear down table here tonight, so if you're going to stay around and chat, please put your stuff on the chairs, because the tables are going to be coming down.
So the chairs, we're going to be setting up, about 150 chairs or something in here, kind of thing. And so we will use all the chairs that are here, plus another 100 or 80 chairs or so from the room. So if you'd like to help, though, you're welcome to serve and help as well. So just throwing that out there. Let's end with a word of prayer. And Andre, would you close our time of prayer tonight?
Lord, thank you for all that you do for us. Thank you for your safe traveling. Thank you for life and breath and health and strength. Thank you for your word, God. It brings life. It brings wisdom. It brings understanding. God, in all that we inspected tonight, in all that we've dug into, God, I pray that you just allow it to bear fruit within us. Allow it to inspect us and stretch us and mold us and prune us. And Lord God, just help us to be better. Help us to be more like you. Help us to be more better representatives of your Son, Jesus Christ, as we go forth into this world. I pray, God, tonight for safe traveling mercies. I pray a covering upon each and every one here. I pray for healing. I pray for strength. I pray for renewal. I pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. God bless you guys. Have a great evening. I'll see you on Sunday.